Sarawak is confident in achieving 1.2 million visitors this year. Malaysia seized the import of poultry, and Ferdinand Marcos Jr. sworn in as the Philippines' new president. Those are the headlines for tonight. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Muhammad Yusuf, and this is TVS Nightline. We begin with this top story. Sarawak is confident of reaching its target of 1.2 million visitors in 2022. State Tourism, Creative Industry and Performing Arts Minister Datuk Sri Abdul Karim Rahman Hamzah said visitor arrival to Sarawak had reached over 439,000 from January to May, a drastic increase of 680% from the same period last year.
I believe from June until December, the numbers will pick up again. We should be able to hit the 1.2. I'm very, very confident of that because practically every month or every week we have got something on. The marathon, international marathon, the 2 international marathon, the Kuching Waterfront Jazz, the Kuching Festival, and all that. That will be able to pull in the numbers. By December, God willing, we should be able to hit that 1.2 million.
He added that the opening of the Brunei's border in August will also contribute to the increase in the number of visitors in the fourth quarter of 2022.
And furthermore, by 1st of August, the border with Brunei will be open. Every week there was at least 4,000 from Brunei. Yeah.
Earlier, Karim officiated the launch of What About Kuching 2022 call for proposal at Waterfront Hotel in Kuching. Celebrating the arts, culture and lifestyles of Kuching's creative communities, the festival is set to return for the whole month of October. And Malaysia will no longer be importing chicken supply from other countries to resolve shortages of the produce. As stated by the Second Deputy Minister of Agriculture and Food Industries, Dr. Nik Muhammad Zawawi Saleh, more poultry farming initiatives will be undertaken by relevant agencies to ensure sufficient supply of poultry in the long run, and the likes of National Farmers Association or NAFAS and the Angkatan Koperasi Kebangsaan Malaysia Berhad or Angkasa. Nik Muhammad also rectified that many of them have returned to usual business following the high demand for chicken. Previously, Malaysia imported a total of 4,536 tons of chicken from Thailand, which would cater to 20% of the poultry market in Malaysia. It will also be used as a stockpile in case of a spike of price for the produce in the near future. Ferdinand Marcos Jr. sworn in as President of the Philippines on Thursday, marking a stunning comeback for one of Asia's most famous political families, 36 years after it was ousted in a popular uprising. The son of the late dictator Ferdinand Marcos Bongbong won a rare landslide victory in last month's election, defeating rival and former Vice President Leni Robredo. In his inaugural address, Bongbong praised his late patriarch's regime, which critics describe as a dark period of human rights abuses and corruption, and vowed to take the country far on his watch with policies benefiting everyone.
We will build back better by doing things in the light of the experiences that we have had, both good and bad. It doesn't matter. No looking back in anger or nostalgia. In the road ahead, the immediate months will be rough, but I will walk that road. I want to build on success that's already happening. We will be presenting the public with a comprehensive infrastructure plan. 6 years could be just about enough time. No part of our country will be neglected.
He succeeds the hugely popular Rodrigo Duterte, who gained international notoriety for his deadly drug wars and has threatened to kill suspected dealers after he leaves office. The ceremony comes days after the Supreme Court dismissed final attempts to have Marcos Jr. disqualified from the election and prevent him taking office. Now, State Secretary Dato' Ahmad Jaul Samiun officially calls it a day on Thursday after 42 years in the state civil service. In a simple parting ceremony, Jaul Samiun clocked out at 5 p.m. at Wisma Bapa Malaysia in Petrojaya. He assumed the post as the State Secretary on 22nd August 2019 and served for 4 years to the day he retired. Deputy State Secretary Datuk Sri Muhammad Abu Bakar Marzuki now assumes the role as the new Sarawak State Secretary. Minimizing the occurrence of sick projects remains a priority of the Ministry of Infrastructure and Port Development MIPD, with constant review towards the work process of the State Public Works Department PWD.
UGA calls upon all agencies to work closely together to bring about the successful completion of all the SIG projects. He was speaking to the press after witnessing the handing over of responsibilities from the ministry's retiring permanent secretary, Datu Safri Zainuddin, to his successor, Chew Chi Yao. UGA is confident that under Chew, much can be achieved. Meanwhile, UGA added there were about 9,000 projects worth more than 48 billion ringgit and 5 ports under the ministry. On another related issue, he said the Premier of Sarawak, Datuk Patinggi Tan Sri Abang Johari Tun Openg, also wanted the MIPD to review the overall policies, development and strategies of the 5 ports.
On to the next news. Highly infectious COVID-19 Omicron subvariants have been detected in Sarawak. And as such, Deputy Premier of Sarawak, Datuk Sri Dr. Sim Koh Hian, has called upon Sarawakians to prepare themselves and protect their families.
In a video posted on Facebook, he pointed out that although COVID-19 standard operating procedures have been lifted, the people still need to protect themselves from being infected. He emphasized the importance of the second booster dose to save lives, especially for those in high-risk occupations.
Jangan tengok saja. Last week, the Omicron subvariant, highly infectious, has landed in Sarawak. It's a matter of time because our border has opened. Though no more SOP, but COVID-19 is not over. It is important for each one of us to start to look after ourselves and our families and get ourselves ready for the subvariants. Many countries have to endure 5th waves. Our second booster dose are not only for those eligible, but also for those at high-risk occupations. Please go to the nearest clinic or the private hospitals for free second COVID dose vaccinations.
Now, an attempt to illegally stash a total of 540 kilograms of cooking oil worth 3,618 ringgit was foiled by the Ministry of Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs, KPDN-HEP, after it was seized at a premise in Bintulu. The Ob Anti-Soro saw the seizure of 41 boxes of cooking oil of various brands and volume.
Rampasan tersebut juga merupakan salah satu usaha pihak KPDN-HEP dalam menangani aktiviti penyorokan barang-barang kawalan termasuklah minyak masak yang telah dirampas tersebut, yang mana telah melanggar peruntukan undang-undang di bawah Akta Kawalan Bekalan 1961.
From January to June 27, 2022, a total of 3,234 premises in Bintulu were inspected and 42 were caught for committing various offences. Nazari also revealed that KPDN-HEP Bintulu have recorded a total seizure worth 921,743 ringgit, while compounds issued recorded stands at 76,850 ringgit. Investigations are ongoing, conducted under the Control of Supply Act 1961. Coming up right after the break, Sarawak excel in 2021 economic growth and Malaysia's inflation among the lowest globally. Right here on TVS Nightline. Stay tuned. And thank you for staying with us. Sarawak recorded a gross domestic product or GDP per capita value above the national level of 47,324 ringgit with a GDP of 57,635 ringgit per capita value. Other states that recorded better growth rate along Sarawak were the Federal Territory of Kuala Lumpur, Labuan, Penang of 58,527 ringgit per capita value, while the overall economic performance of all states registered positive growth in 2021.
Department of Statistics Malaysia DOSM Chief Statisticians Dato Sri Dr. Muhammad Uzair Mahidin said the 5 states recording above the national level are Penang with a growth rate of 6.8%, followed by Selangor 5%, Terengganu 3.6%, Perak 3.5% and Kedah 3.2%. Muhammad Uzair said the main drivers of the gross domestic product GDP performance were the manufacturing and services sectors. He said based on this growth, the department expects the nation's economic growth pattern to grow rapidly in every state post-COVID-19 pandemic, noting that the Malaysian economy will continue to expand this year following the increase in services locally and overseas with the reopening of borders, implementation of aid and economic stimulus packages, as well as the success of the national COVID-19 immunization program. He said the recovery impact was seen in the improved GDP growth rate of 5% in the first quarter of 2022, compared with a contraction of 0.5% in the first quarter of 2021. Quoting the April 2022 leading index, which predicts the economic direction in the short term, he also projected that Malaysia's economic performance would maintain a better trend despite facing an uncertain economic condition due to differences in the rate and time for countries that have reopened their economic activities.
Malaysia's inflation rate remains at 2.8%, one of the lowest in the world, especially in current times. This is mainly attributed to the government's commitment in controlling the prices of essentials and goods, while other countries are facing double-digit inflation. According to the Minister of Communications and Multimedia, Tan Sri Anwar Musa, the government will be spending more than 70 billion ringgit for subsidies alone in 2022. Essentials such as petrol, cooking oil, flour, and electricity are among the items being subsidized by the government. When compared to last year's subsidies, the difference is more than half, which was 33 billion ringgit. Anwar assured Malaysians that the government will continue to give subsidy so as not to burden the people when prices of goods are increased, while maintaining the country's inflation at a low level. The epic film Mat Kilau Kebangkitan Pahlawan has raked in 23,300,000 ringgit within 7 days after premiering in cinemas last Thursday, June 23rd. The film, produced by Kembara Studio and directed by Shamsul Yusof, broke the record for the highest grossing opening week for local epic films, with 1 million ringgit on its first day, according to TGV Cinemas. Starring Dato Adiputra, Beto Kushairi, Fatah Amin, Yayan Ruhan, and Johan As'ari, the movie tells one portion of the life of Malay warrior Mat Kilau, who fought against the British in the late 19th century. Made with a budget of 8 million ringgit, it's said that 60% of the film's story is based on true events. Mat Kilau Kebangkitan Pahlawan focuses on the year 1892 and is set in Pahang, when Mat Kilau and his father, Tok Gajah, are said to have attacked the British military base with 80 other fighters. The partnership of national divers Datuk Pandalela Rinong and Oi Tiliang only managed 5th place in the mixed 3-meter and 10-meter team event at the 2022 World Championships. The event saw Pandalela and Tiliang accumulate a total of 350.25 points at the Duna Arena in Budapest, Hungary. Chinese divers triumphed in the event as Olympic and world champion Kwang Hongchan and partner Bai Yuming amassed 391.40 points in total to deliver China's historic 100th gold medal in the World Championships. French pair Alexis Jondart and Jade Gillett with 358.50 points, and Great Britain's Andrea Spandolini and James Hitley 357.60 points took home the silver and bronze respectively. Later in the mixed 3-meter springboard event, Muhammad Shafiq Puteh and Ng Yan Yi ended up in 7th place with 275.46 points. Powerhouse China again topped the podium through Lin Shan and Zhu Zifeng with 324.15 points, followed by Italians Chiara Pellicani and Matteo Santoro with 293.55 points, and James Hitley, Grace Reed with 287.61 points. This is TVS Nightline. Now we're on to some global news. Russia's President Vladimir Putin stated that he is open to having a dialogue on strategic stability and nuclear non-proliferation. Though Russia has yet to stop its infiltration in Ukraine, concerns over the usage of weapons of mass destruction rises to sky levels. Hence, both the US and Russia, who owns some of the largest nuclear powers, stress the importance of maintaining communication on the issue of nuclear arms.
Россия открыта к диалогу по обеспечению стратегической стабильности, сохранению режимов нераспространения оружия массового уничтожения, улучшению ситуации в сфере контроля над вооружениями. Мы нацелены на объединение усилий по таким жизненно важным темам, как климатическая повестка, борьба с голодом, обеспечение стабильности продовольственных и энергетических рынков, справедливые правила международной торговли и конкуренции.
Putin said the efforts would require a sincere and holistic joint collaboration effort to prevent more war from erupting.
Все эти сферы требуют адекватного и гибкого правового регулирования, кропотливой совместной работы. И тогда не будут возникать кризисы, подобные тому, что происходит сегодня на Донбассе с целью защиты его жителей от геноцида. А действиям киевского режима нет другого определения, кроме как преступления против человечности.
Indonesian President Joko Widodo arrived in Kiev on Wednesday, June 29th, for a visit to Ukraine in hopes to rekindle peace talks between Russia and Ukraine and exploring ways to free up exports of grain to global markets. Jokowi and his wife arrived in the Ukraine capital by train before traveling to a war-torn town near Kiev to witness the destruction of civilian residential areas following Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Ya, saya didampingi oleh Wali Kota Irpin dan Deputi Wali Kota Irpin untuk melihat kerusakan yang terjadi di Kota Irpin akibat perang. Dan sangat menyedihkan sekali, banyak rumah-rumah yang rusak, kemudian juga infrastruktur yang rusak. Dan kita harapkan tidak ada lagi kota-kota yang rusak di Ukraina akibat perang.
Jokowi is the chairman of the G20 and one of the 6 world leaders who were chosen by the United Nations to serve as champions of the Global Crisis Response Group GCRG, which was established to address the threat of food and poverty caused by war in Ukraine. Before the war, Ukraine had been one of Indonesia's biggest wheat suppliers. Later that day, Jokowi met Zelensky with hopes of rekindling peace talks between Russia and Ukraine and exploring ways to free up exports of grain to global markets. He had personally offered to deliver a message from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to Russian leader Vladimir Putin to try to boost peace hopes.
Walaupun masih sangat sulit dicapai, saya tetap sampaikan pentingnya penyelesaian damai dan spirit perdamaian tidak boleh pernah luntur. Dalam kaitan ini saya menawarkan diri untuk membawa pesan dari Presiden Zelensky untuk Presiden Putin yang akan saya temui segera.
He also confirmed Indonesia's contribution to medical and infrastructure aid to Kiev. A Mexican reporter was killed on Wednesday, June 29th, in one of the country's most violent northern border states, officials said. This is the latest in a series of attacks in one of the world's most dangerous countries for journalists. Antonio de la Cruz, a journalist for local newspaper Expresso, was shot and killed in his home in the state of Tamaulipas. His death is the second of an employee at the outlet following his colleague Hector Gonzalez's murder in 2018, according to human rights organization Article 19. Tamaulipas is a Gulf Coast state just south of Texas where violent drug cartels fight over lucrative smuggling routes. Local journalists who focus on crime and corruption are especially vulnerable. Expresso has been the target of several attacks in the past, Article 19 said. In 2012, a car bomb exploded in front of the paper's offices, and in 2018, A severed head was left in a cooler outside. The journalist's daughter was also injured in the attack. Tamaulipas Governor Francisco Garcia Cabeza de Vaca said on Wednesday afternoon she was in critical condition. The Tamaulipas Attorney General's office said in a news conference late Wednesday that the gun used to kill De La Cruz was a .40 caliber pistol, which is used exclusively in the country by the army. It said it had not ruled out the involvement of organized crime. Now, due to popular demand starting tomorrow, Sejahtera Asia will be broadcasting live for 1 hour and 15 minutes, which means more news and more insights from our special guests. Tomorrow, join host Gus and Juzak, who will be talking to Zarina Zainuddin, an actress who played the role Rokia in the Malaysian box office movie Mat Kilau Kebangkitan Pahlawan. And later on, our very own boxing champion, Deloniel Magdalon, or Kilat Boy, who will be sharing his sweats and tears while being in the arena for the past decade. 7:30 a.m. only on TVS Astro Channel 122 and My Freeview. See the world closer with TVS as we bring you the latest news updates, both locally and internationally, just a click away by heading on to our website at www.tvstv.my or follow us on our social media platforms. That's all the time we have for TVS Nightline. I'm Mohammed Yusuf. Thank you for watching and good night.